3 years ago, Sarah walked off the stage in the middle of her presentation. Her mind went blank, her hands shook uncontrollably, and she felt like she couldn't breathe. Today, she regularly gives keynote speeches to audiences of thousands. What changed? Not her personality, not her knowledge, just 3 specific techniques that transformed her relationship with public speaking. Today, I'm going to share those exact techniques, the same ones I have taught to people who were once terrified of public speaking, but now command attention whenever they take up that space on the stage. But first, let's talk about why public speaking is considered the number 1 fear of most people, ranking even above heights, spiders, or even death in some surveys. After working with hundreds of speakers from all walks of life, I've discovered something which is surprising. The problem isn't about the lack of knowledge or experience. Even experts in their fields freeze up when asked to present. The real solution is much simpler, but completely different from what most people think or are taught to think in the way. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share 3 powerful techniques that can transform your public speaking experience. The first one is so simple that when I shared it with my clients, they often say, "That's it? That's the big secret?" And the third one, it is exactly the opposite of what most people assume of public speaking. But when they try these techniques, everything changes for them and they experience the success for themselves. Let's start with understanding what's really happening in your body when you feel speaking anxiety. That racing heart, those shaky hands, the dry mouth, these aren't signs that you are failing. They're actually your body's natural response to something it perceives as important. Here's what's fascinating. The physical signs of fear look almost identical to the physical signs of excitement. Both involve elevated heart rate, increased breathing, heightened alertness. The only difference is how your brain labels these sensations. This brings us to our very first technique, what I call reframe response. Instead of trying to calm yourself down, which rarely ever really works, you simply change how you think about what you are feeling. Let me show you exactly how this worked for Shizan, a team leader who would get physically ill before presentations, get nausea, and sometimes even throw up. Before his talks, he would repeat to himself, "I need to calm down, I need to calm down," which only made things worse. Here's what we changed. Instead of trying to calm down, Shizan began saying out loud, "I'm excited about sharing these ideas. My body is getting ready to deliver something that is really important." He would literally look into the mirror before his presentation and say those exact words. The first time he tried this, he still felt the physical sensation, the racing heart, the adrenaline rush, but they no longer felt debilitating. They felt useful. His presentation that day was described as engaging and confident by his peers and his senior leaders. This might sound too simple to be effective, but it works because it aligns with how our brains actually function, the science of brains. When you feel those nervous sensations and label them as excitement instead of fear, you're not lying to yourself. You're just choosing a most helpful interpretation of the exact same physical experience. But there's still something important missing from this approach. This brings us to the second technique, what I call the connection bridge. Most speakers make the same crucial mistakes. They focus on themselves rather than their audience. They worry about how they look, what people will think of them, whether they'll make mistakes. But here's the truth. Your audience isn't thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. They're thinking about themselves and what they can gain from your talk. Let me share what happened with Lisa, a small business owner who would freeze with anxiety during client presentation. Very common. We completely changed her pre-speaking routine. Instead of reviewing her slides one last time, or practicing her opening, she would spend 5 minutes thinking about the specific people who were in her audience. She would ask herself very calmly, what are they worried about right now? What do they need from me? How can my message help them? Then when she began her presentation, she wouldn't focus on being perfect. She would focus on helping the real people in front of her. The result? At her next presentation, a client who had been on the fence for months finally signed a contract. Not because she was suddenly became more polished speaker, but because she created a genuine connection. That is the core of communication, a genuine connection. But there's a third technique that ties everything together, and it's probably the opposite of what you've been taught about public speaking preparation. I said that before in this video. The third technique is what I called micro mastery moments. Here's the problem with how most people prepare for presentation. They rehearse their entire talk over and over and over again, hoping repetition will build confidence. But this approach often increases anxiety because any small deviation from your script feels like a failure. Instead, the most confident speakers I have worked with focus on mastering small specific moments within their talk. Well, let me show you how this transformed Aryan's experience. He was preparing for an important presentation at work that could lead to his promotion perhaps. Instead of trying to memorize his entire 15-minute presentation, we identified 3 key moments in the presentation. They were, number 1, his opening story. Number 2, the explanation of his main idea. Number 3, his closing recommendation. We practiced these 3 segments until they became second nature. For the rest of the presentation, he focused on the main points rather than specific wording. When the day came, Aryan felt a lot more confident about these critical moments, which created the foundation of his security. When he inevitably went slightly off script in other sections, it didn't throw him off into panic because his key moments were still solid and in place. His manager later said it was his clear conviction that made the recommendation so convincing, not just the data he presented. His conviction convinced people. Think about your own experience with speaking anxiety. Where do you focus most of your attention? On your performance or on your audience's needs? On memorizing every word or mastering the key moments? The shift in focus can completely transform your experience. Let me show you how to put these 3 techniques into practice before your next upcoming important presentation. The reframe response. When you feel those physical sensations of anxiety, don't fight them. Instead, say out loud, "This energy is helping me deliver something important. I'm excited to share these ideas." Say those exact same words, even if you don't fully believe them at first. The words themselves will begin to reshape your brain, how your brain interprets the physical sensations. The connection bridge. Before you speak, spend 5 minutes asking yourself these specific questions. They are all about your audience. Who are the actual people in my audience? What challenge are they facing related to my topic? How can my message help them in a practical way? Think deeply about your audience, the people you seek to serve. When you begin speaking, focus on connecting with individual faces rather than addressing a faceless audience. Finally, the micro mastery moments. Identify the 3 most important moments in your presentation, perhaps your opening, a key explanation, and your closing call to action. Practice these segments until they become second nature to you. For the rest, focus on your main points rather than exact wordings. You don't have to be word by word perfect. When my client Jennifer used these 3 techniques for her first major workplace presentation, she told me afterward, for the first time, I actually felt in control rather than overwhelmed and anxious. I was able to present to my audience instead of being lost in my own anxiety. Remember these key principles for your next presentation. The physical sensation of fear and excitement are nearly identical. It's your interpretation that matters. Connection with your audience is more important than perfection. Mastering key moments create a foundation of confidence. But here's what's most important to understand as a communicator. Public speaking isn't about being perfect. It's about sharing something valuable for others. The technique I've shared aren't about eliminating those feelings of nervousness. They will still be there. It's about channeling them into something more powerful. Even the most experienced speakers still feel that rush, that adrenaline rush before they go on the stage. I feel it all the time. The difference is that they've learned to use that energy rather than fight it. What's your biggest public speaking challenge? Share it in the comments below. I'd love to help you apply these principles to your specific situation. And if you want more practical tips for confident, impactful communication, hit that subscribe button. In the coming videos, I'm sharing 5 simple body language adjustments that can transform your message, how your message is received by your audience. Hope that helps. Till then, till I see you again, stay storied.